Hello everyone. Boy, do I have a special video in store for you today. As of the 20th of February, the day after this video goes up on my channel, my How Thomas and Friends Teaches About Overcoming Disabilities video will officially be 1 year old. I owe a lot to that video because it basically led to what my channel is right now and where I want to take it. What started initially as a passion project heavily inspired by the Unlucky Tug's Sodor's Finest video on Gordon and his More Than a Kids Show series, is now what inspired me to review the Thomas and Friends series in its entirety, as well as other types of series, films, and video games. To celebrate both the occasion of this video's birthday and the success of my review videos, I decided it's time to do another one. Another video analysing an important life lesson from Thomas and Friends. The only question was, which episode do I do? I knew that for a special occasion it had to be something big. Something not just with a powerful message, but one of my personal favourites. As you guys all know from my Series 3 review, my top 3 episodes of that series are my favourite episodes of all time. All at Sea, Escape, and Henry's Forest. Escape I feel like I will have to save for another time because that's something where I'll have to write about not just its significance to the franchise, but the real life events it was based on. And Henry's Forest is tempting, but I think that's way too soon for me to make a video for my favourite episode of all time. I want as much time as I possibly can to devote to that story. So, All at Sea it shall be. All at Sea is the 18th episode of Series 3 of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. It first aired on TV in the UK on the 19th of May 1992. It was directed by David Mitton and is one of 2 stories written for Series 3 both by himself and Britt Allcroft that were not inspired by any of Wilbert Awdry's books or any of Andrew Brenner's magazine stories. The episode was composed by series musicians Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell, with narration by Michael Angelis and American narration by George Carlin as part of the Shining Time Station episode it made its appearance in, Becky Makes a Wish. The episode itself is visually and musically gorgeous. David Mitton had gained some prior experience on filming miniature sets around dockside ports thanks to working with Robert D. Cardona on Tugs in 1988, and he put those skills on full display when working on this episode. The steam shrouding the boats with soft gleaming lights glowing across the harbour, the bustling sounds of the engines running to and from the quayside with faint ship horns in the background, the sheer size of the ships themselves filmed from a low angle making them seem huge, and the cranes moving the cargo around. They all help to make the whole harbour itself feel like it's whimsical enough to be in a kids show, but realistic and industrial enough to feel like it's a real place. The score only adds to its effectiveness. The opening theme is a recomposition of the Viaduct theme from Series 2, this time referred to as the Harbour theme, and what a majestic piece to open with. The music throughout the rest of the episode keeps to the consistency with familiar motifs, great little ditties, grand recompositions of character themes, and emotional tunes. But what this episode does greatest of all is tell an impactful story relevant to people of all ages: the value of home. Let's begin with the episode's plot. Duck and Percy are busy working at Brendam Docks. Continuity-wise, this would have been around about the time that Thomas's branch line was closed due to the rails being bent by the heat of the sun in Thomas Gets Bumped. So during repairs, Bertie takes care of the passengers, Thomas was left to do shunting in the yards, and Percy went to work with Duck at Brendam. As this would be around the time that Duck was still the station pilot at Knapford, he didn't have his branch line yet, contrary to what the episode order will tell you. One morning, the 2 engines see that the harbour has become packed with colourful sailboats, to which Harold later explains to them is part of the Regatta, a sport event series of boat races. As the engines continue to watch the boats, we discover that Duck has gained a love for the seas and dreams to travel beyond the horizon to faraway places.
I wish I could sail to faraway lands, sighed Duck.
Percy tries to talk him out of such a silly idea, but Duck just sits there blissfully ignorant to whatever he is saying. This is a great story point to expand specifically on the character of Duck. But to put it into perspective, Duck was introduced back in Series 2 as the Great Western tank engine with a funny name and pride in his heritage. He stood up to the bigger engines trying to order him and Percy about by blocking them from the sheds, and he boasted about the proper way to do work in the yards, which annoyed the other engines. But even after he had been sent away from being framed by Diesel as someone who made the trucks laugh at them, he showed he was still a brave, determined engine when he tried to stop a runaway goods train, crashing into a barber shop in the process. And while the episode never saw the light of day, he showed how much he had grown from being an engine shown how to work in the yards by Percy, to showing Donald and Douglas how to work around the yards when they first arrived on Sodor. But still, not much else was known about Duck himself other than him being a hard-working engine proud of his heritage. The Thomas Cynic, in his video comparing how Duck and Oliver were written as characters, made the statement that you could replace the main lead of All at Sea with any other character and the story would still work. And while I kind of see his point, the episode itself isn't 100% tailored to Duck specifically, that's exactly why I love that they chose Duck to expand upon. Series 3, as we all know, was the first series to not be based entirely around stories from the Railway series, from which the original stories started to develop the characters a bit more and added more depth to them. Bill and Ben's heroic side in Heroes, James's pride in his red paint in No Joke for James, and Henry's love for nature in Henry's Forest, just to name a few. The decision to develop Duck, arguably a very one-dimensional character from Series 2, with this story giving him an ambition to explore and a love for the regatta races, was such a smart move. His dreams are only accentuated when Harold speaks so casually about being able to travel beyond the horizon and to other places.
Do you go to other places at sea? Continued Duck.
Certainly. I can land on ships, you know, anywhere, anytime. Goodbye.
This is a desire we as people can all relate to. Many of us love to venture out into the great outdoors and see the world for ourselves, visit new places, see and meet new people, try new foods, and partake in so many different activities. In a world where videos and photos of different countries and iconic locations can be shared with anyone, anywhere, and where people across the globe can connect with each other with the simple press of a button, nothing is more impactful than actually being there yourself. However, while the desire to travel is natural to us as humans, depending on who you are and your life, it could be for different reasons. Sometimes it's just curiosity, a naturally harmless fondness of going out to see the world with your own eyes. But sometimes it could be to escape the life that you have at home, which you may have found to become tedious and dull. Because sometimes we crave excitement, we crave something new every day to feed that excitement. And being stuck in a regular life of work, paying bills, and places you see every day can lead to you feeling very bored. So every day, you dream of what it's like to be somewhere new and break free from the constant drag of your life you find uneventful. But there's one thing stopping you from just hopping on a boat and just going out on an adventure at your leisure. One major thing. Duck, with his newfound dream, goes on talking about the regatta all day. Percy finally loses patience and snaps at Duck.
Well, Duck, I'd rather have my wheels on solid ground. Our rails can take us to all the places we could ever wish to see.
Percy is incredibly relevant to this story, not just because of his bad history with water, making it understandable why he wouldn't want to travel across the seas, but because of his friendship with Duck. Think about it. Percy was the very first engine Duck befriended on his first day on Sodor, and the two together stood up to the other engines for bullying them. If anyone should get through to Duck on how he shouldn't want to leave his home behind for the sake of going somewhere new, it's him. But he just doesn't. Even when he made it blatantly obvious to Duck earlier that they physically can't go out across the waters because they're engines.
Engines can't go sailing, snorted Percy, because engines can't float.
Which plays into what Duck, as well as many other people in real life, fail to realise sometimes. We can sure as hell try to leave our old home and go to new places far away, but perhaps there's many things stopping us. Physical disabilities that make it harder to explore, mental disabilities that make us unable to cope with the stresses of being somewhere new and getting used to new noises and different senses, allergic reactions and temperature changes we're not built to deal with, or we just flat out do not have enough money or time to do so, being occupied with paying for food, water, electricity, the bare essentials for living on our own. That not only drives our incentive more to break free from what feels like the prison of our own lives, but more so when we see people who have all the privilege and access to the world around them and talk about it so casually, whereas if you were in their shoes, you'd be taking in every moment you had with going somewhere new with the snap of a finger. But that's unfortunately the way it goes. Some people are just built differently. And no matter how hard you try, there's no easy way to do what they can do. In retrospect, this can seem pretty upsetting. The realization you may never achieve that dream to explore and instead be forever stuck in one place. It's not directly addressed in the episode itself, but the truth is still there. You may start to wonder, if I can't go wherever I want to go, what makes staying here so important? Well, as Percy snaps at Duck, the episode is about to show that. The answer is about to become clear. A man taking part in the regatta race has injured his hand and has to be taken to hospital. Immediately, the whimsy and light-hearted tone from the episode is shifted. Someone has been seriously hurt and needs help as soon as possible. Harold brings the injured man safely to the quayside, who is then helped into Duck's cab whilst Harold goes back to keep a lookout for anyone else at sea who needs help. Meanwhile, Duck speeds out of the harbour and hurries along the line. This has probably been his first time in a while out of the harbour, so he's back on familiar parts of the line, which allows him to run as smoothly as possible without stopping. He reaches the station where Bertie arrives to take the man to hospital. And right here, Bertie compliments Duck without realising that he's just told him exactly what he needs to hear.
You look splendid flying along the line, Duck, glowed Bertie. No wonder they call you Great Western.
The realisation suddenly hits Duck, not just being reminded of his heritage that he is oh so proud of, but understanding his worth as an engine. Harold said he would take the man to hospital himself, but has to stay at the harbour as a lookout. So, in a way, he's stuck in one place and doesn't have the freedom that Duck and Percy have. He may have the chance to go to faraway places more often than most, but that's only because it's his responsibility. Having had time away from the harbour and the unintentional pep talk from Bertie, Duck now realises the importance of staying where he is.
Percy's right, Duck thought to himself. Engines are happiest when their wheels are firmly on the rails.
As he returns to the harbour and night comes down, Harold out on night patrol drops down a flag from the regatta to give to Duck as a present, showing he really does understand what Duck has dreamed about with venturing out across the seas. And finally, as the sun rises the following morning, Percy and Duck, joined by Thomas, stare out across the quay with this phenomenally beautiful shot and these closing lines read by the narrator.
Duck still wonders about the lands beyond the horizon. But he enjoys being with friends most of all, and I think he knows that sometimes the best travels are those we can only dream about. Don't you?
This is what the story has been leading to tell us from the very beginning. It's easy to let your mind wander and dream about something that's far out of your reach. But sometimes you may go a bit too far. It could become an unhealthy obsession which will inevitably hit you in the face with the grim, unfortunate truth. In this case, you can't go wherever you want to, whenever you want to, because there are so many things holding you back from doing so that seems to be no issue for other people. But what keeps you where you are is your value to other people, because more often than not, you can do something that they can't do in the job they are doing. So under certain circumstances, your importance of where you are is as clear as day. Not just to those people, but also because of your friends who want you to stay, not just because they're there to keep you safe, but they genuinely like being around you. Which is why the episode ends with a specific shot of the three friends looking out across the waters. It's no doubt something that they've seen every day, but in this instance, it's different. It's warm, comfortable, and full of life in a way nowhere else in the world can be. It's home.